All right, so I am here with Riley Jensen, who's an old friend and colleague going all the way back to our Utah State days when we were playing sports together. He was our quarterback of the team and an extremely good athlete, but Riley's been a successful entrepreneur, mental performance coach, which we'll get in and talk about that. He's also a very good husband and father, and just an overall.
I hope so.
You hope so. Just an overall really good man. So I'm excited to be able to do this podcast with him and just get to know a little bit more about you, and just talk about what it is that you do. So Riley, just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and your upbringing.
So originally I grew up in Logan. My dad was the tennis coach at Utah State University when I was growing up.
I didn't know that.
And so I like to tell people that I'm a son of a coach. And I grew up just chasing dreams, chasing it really hard up there in Logan. And I played football, basketball, baseball, tennis. I mean, you name it. If there was a ball involved, I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't get me not to go. I can remember, I have really good memories of going to the outdoor ice skating rink there in Logan. Way when I was
Merlin
little.
Olsen Park.
Yeah. Just hanging out all night until the lights went out, and then my parents would come pick me up and then start again the next day. But I really grew up with great parents. Mm-hmm. I think my mom has this unique ability to believe in her kids and really portray that in a unique and authentic way. And I think my dad was really good. He dabbled in sports psychology. It wasn't really a field that was accepted as a discipline or a study at that time. But he read a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And I feel like I was his guinea pig. And I think he did a great job. Like, I think he would have been a fantastic sports psychologist if he decided to do it. And so all of these events just kind of helped me to believe in myself, helped me to think that I could do things. Not that I was the best at everything, but that I was good enough that if I worked hard at it, that I could get better. Mm-hmm. And I think just small steps like continued to just fall together because of that belief from my parents that I think they installed in me. And even when I was coming out of high school, I only had one scholarship to Snow College. And I was pretty sure I was going to make it. I mean, that doesn't sound very promising from the outside, right? But like, Snow College gave me a scholarship, and I was like, yeah, because I'm a good football player.
Yeah.
And if I work hard, my dreams are still intact, right? Yeah. And I went on to play really well at Snow College. I signed at BYU. Some things didn't really work out, and then I ended up transferring to Utah State and getting a chance to start at Utah State.
Yeah. And that's where you and I came in contact,
right?
Got to know each other a little
I
bit.
was a junior at the time, and you were a freshman.
Yep.
And that's when you were lifting weights so hard that you blow blood. I'm not joking. Brian was lifting weights so hard. During one of our workouts, he blew a blood vessel in his eyeball, and his eye was red for like 6 months. It's not a joke. Listen, I don't know what he's doing now in the weight room, but please breathe when you're lifting. Please breathe.
Yeah. Well, I never went at things half speed,
Go
out.
There's no question you were all out. Just breathe while you're doing it, please.
Well, let's go back to you for a second. So you lived up in Logan, then you came down and you played at Cottonwood High School.
I did. So my 10th grade year, we ended up moving to Salt Lake City. Okay. And I played at Cottonwood High School. So and then, football, basketball, and baseball there.
Yeah. I don't think
tennis.
we ever played basketball against each other. I didn't know you were a basketball player.
No, yeah. In fact, I started more years in basketball and baseball than I did in football. So I'm a football guy, but I was a 3-year starter for basketball and baseball. So.
And I do remember Cottonwood had some good years there in basketball for sure.
Yeah, state semifinals every year I was there. We beat Davis in the quarterfinals one year.
Okay.
You may remember Isaacson, some of the old Davis High School guys. But
so you go down to Snow on a scholarship, and you ended up becoming an All-American at Snow. Is that right?
I did.
So
my second year there, we were 10-1, ranked 4th in the country. I led the country in yards passing and touchdowns. I was named first team All-American. And I think I had 6 offers.
Wow.
I know I had preferred walk-on to Arizona State. I had offers to Kansas State, South Florida, Boise State, Utah State, BYU, and a walk-on to Utah. That was the other walk-on.
Do you attribute a lot of your success that you had in those years to your mental focus, your mental ability more than anything? Is that what you'd say it was?
I I think so.
I mean, you're 6 foot, is that right?
Yeah,
6'1"?
I'm just 6 foot. You know, I was my playing weight was about 198. I wasn't a huge quarterback.
Right.
I think I learned early on. I mean, growing up, you know, you play high school sport, you feel like you're the best player on the team.
Sure.
But I'm not even sure that I was the best quarterback as far as talent is concerned on any of the teams that I played on in college. There was on every team that I played on, there was a guy that could throw the ball further than me. There was a guy that could run faster than me. There was a guy that was taller than me. There was a guy that was heavier than me. There was a guy that was stronger than me. And so I think I learned very quickly that if I wanted to play and I wanted to get on the field, that I was going to have to do the extras, which meant the mental work. Like, no one was going to beat me as far as video goes. No one was going to beat me as far as putting in the extra work after practice. Nobody was going to be... I was going to be on time to every practice. I was going to get to every workout. I was going to put in every single off-season workout. And I think the compilation of that made me into... Well, it must have been because I was elected by my coaches, if you will, to be the starter on every team that I was on in college, to be the starter. And so the compilation of those things meant that I was the best quarterback at that time in that era. But I mean, Jeff Crosby could throw the ball 15 yards further than me. I mean, 15. Olin Hannum, who ended up playing quarterback at North Carolina State, could throw the ball 15 yards further than me. Both of those guys were faster than me, you know. But I ended up being a starter in front of those guys for whatever reason.
Well, I can remember when I was up there, it was 97, and I'm a freshman, like you said, and you had just transferred from BYU, so you had to go through a redshirt year.
Right.
And typically when you're going through a redshirt year, that means that you're running
meat
the scout.
squad.
You're the meat squad. You're the scout team. But I do remember that you were the quarterback of the scout team, and you would just go out and dominate the starting defense. And
that might be debatable.
No, I remember you were doing really, really, I mean, well enough that I remember the talk in the locker room is, hey, next year we're going to have Riley as our starting quarterback, and you were running the scout team on offense. So that says a lot just in who you were.
I'm actually, out of all the accolades that I got and all the things that happened to me in my football career, basketball career, baseball, growing up, whatever, my very, very favorite award was that year, and I got Scout Team Player of the Year. Because
that's awesome.
God, I'm going to get emotional, but to me, I loved the game, and I didn't want any of the things that I was searching for. I didn't want it to be because I wanted an award. I wanted it to be because I loved the game, because I was a good teammate, and because I showed up every day and put in the work, whether I was the guy that was getting interviewed and getting all the and keep in mind, this is right after I got first team All-American. I mean, this is the next fall.
Right.
So it was really humbling. It was really humbling to be in that situation where, you know, Ben Crossland is the MVP of the league at defensive end, and he's taking cheap shots at me in the middle of practice, right?
Yeah.
And there's different things going on that were really humbling at that point. And I think that was a really formative year for me, that if you decide that you love something, or if you decide that you want something, then you go for it. And it doesn't matter what awards you're getting. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. That needs to be your focus, because you love it, because that's where you want to be. And that's where I wanted to be. And, you know, I didn't even know there was a Scout Team Player Award. So it wasn't like I was like searching for that award. But that plaque hangs in my mom's office right now. And that's my favorite award by far. By far.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you sharing that. You know, and just quick memory, it takes me back. My favorite award I think I ever won was the Most Improved Player award that I got at Utah State. And when I came back from my mission, I was underweight because I had lost probably 20, 30 pounds when I was on my mission. So that when I blew my eye out and I got real big, I lost all of that. I came back, I was underweight, and I just played scout team pretty much my entire freshman year. And then the next year, I was the nickel and strong safety, and worked my tail off and was able to get that award. Now that still means so much to me, because the coaches recognized the change that happened from one year to the next. So thank you for bringing that up, and those are great memories. So So then you finish at Utah State, you're starting quarterback, and then you decide you're going to go and coach. So you go to North Carolina State.
Well, I ended up going back to Snow College for 1 year, and I was the offensive coordinator there, and then I went to North Carolina State.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I coached for a year, and then I got picked up by one of my mentors and friends by the name of Mike Canales.
Yeah. Know who he is.
He's a great coordinator. He's been all over the country. He's been in the NFL. Last year he was coaching at Tennessee. This year he's coaching at UTEP. But he's the one who kind of took me under his wing and took me back to North Carolina State with him.
And you were an offensive administrator? What did you?
So I was an offensive graduate assistant.
Okay.
And special teams graduate assistant for North Carolina State. So I was right there in the room with Philip Rivers, coaching him, talking to him, being around him. Being around Mike Canales was a great opportunity for me. There was Jericho Cotchery was a wide receiver in the NFL for like 15 years. He just barely got done playing. Philip's still playing.
Yeah.
I was around those guys quite a bit, but so that was a great opportunity.
Did you notice anything, just even at that time, a difference between the greats and how they performed, and as far as their mental side? What were some of the things that you noticed?
It was interesting, the shift from the college player mode to the college coach mode. Start making observations about like what was going on. I mean, clearly if you're playing Division I football, I don't care what school it's at, you're a very, very good athlete. Like those guys were, but Philip Rivers' ability to stay positive and to stay motivated in every practice was off the charts. I remember, I think we were 7-0 or 8-0 going into the Duke game, and that Duke's good now at football. They're going to bowl games, but at the time they were the doldrums of college football, right?
Yeah.
And I remember him on that Monday, and even us as coaches were kind of like, it's Duke. We're going through the week here, and we're going to win this game. And we were going to win the game, and we did win the game. But Philip Rivers, from the very start of the practice on Monday all the way through Thursday, was insane in his enthusiasm for the game. I mean, insane. He was betting defensive cornerbacks. He's like, I'll bet you a pizza you don't even touch the leather football this week. And Greg Golden, who's from St. Thomas Aquinas, which is like a nationally ranked high school program, is like, bring it, Philip. You can't throw over here. And it wasn't but like the third or fourth play from then. He throws a touchdown over the top of Greg Golden, and he's running down the field saying, touchdown, Wolfpack, Greg Golden. You know, he's like, he was this enthusiastic, unbelievable, passionate person for what he was doing. I thought that I had a lot of passion and enthusiasm for the game.
Yeah. This
guy was me on steroids. He was the leader. He was the captain. That he was so good at that enthusiasm and that joy about what he was doing that it affected all of us, including the coaches. And that's where I think I really learned that leadership is not your position. Leadership is what you decide it to be.
Yeah.
He wasn't the coach. He wasn't the head coach. He wasn't in charge of making sure that the troops were motivated. He wasn't in charge of any of that.
Yeah.
But he wanted to win, and he loved the sport. And so he wasn't going to wait around for the coach to motivate. In fact, he was motivating coaches.
That's awesome.
So I thought it was cool. I've never met a better leader than Philip Rivers in my entire life.
Wow.
And he's got a little bit of a bad rep because he'll talk some fun in the NFL. But I've never heard him say a swear word. He loves his family dearly, and he loves football like no one I've ever seen. It's really contagious to be around him. Really contagious.
Yeah. Well, what stuck out to me, what you just said, was that, you know, the enthusiasm, the energy, no matter who the opponent was. Because you hear coaches talk all the time, well, the most important game is the next game, and that's who you focus in on, no matter who the opponent is. But you rarely hear that from a player.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was the one that was leading with the energy and the excitement, the enthusiasm, and they're playing Duke, that tells you a lot about.
There's a reason why when Philip Rivers was at North Carolina State, they were consistently ranked in the top 10 in the country. And it was him. I mean, it was him.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about, you come home now back to Utah, and you started coaching at some different high schools. I think first Cottonwood High School, which is your alma mater, and then you started Mt.West Elite. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
So, a lot of fun. I realized that when I got home and I didn't want to coach college football anymore, I was like, I still love football. I still want to be involved. And I love, it doesn't matter whether I'm teaching Philip Rivers a pointer or if I'm teaching you or a 7-year-old or an 18-year-old. I get the same rush when the light goes on. When the light goes on and they succeed, that's really fulfilling as a coach, right?
Right.
When things start to go well. So I got back into coaching at Cottonwood, loved it. I think I was there for 8-9 years. Went to Olympus High School. I'm currently at Alta High School coaching. But 7 years ago, we started a business called Mt.West Elite. And the idea at the time is basketball, baseball, all these other sports, they really get to practice all year round. And there's really no penalty as far as like the high school association goes. I mean, basketball season gets over and they're at AAU for the Easter tournament. And then they have summer basketball camp. And then they have open gym in the fall during basketball or during football season. And then they have their season. And it's like they get to play all year round and we don't. So we...
Yeah, which you do at the college level.
At the college level you do, but in high school there's all these rules about when you can practice and when you can't and how you do it. And we just thought to ourselves, look, there's got to be a way that we can set up an organization or a niche that can allow people who are not playing the other sports to work on their skills in the spring without being penalized for it, right? So we started Mt.West Elite. I think in our first year, I was petrified, by the way, petrified to start my own business. I didn't know how to go and get your business license. I didn't know anything about accounting. I didn't know anything about marketing. I mean, nothing. I mean, before I started the business of Mt.West Elite, I thought like people who started businesses were like part of this like secret society that like knew how to start businesses, or they had a certain amount of money or a certain amount of knowledge that the rest of us didn't have.
Right.
And I just started it with two of my former coaches at Snow. My offensive coordinator, Ed Larson, one of the linebackers coach named Ale Mateo. Mm-hmm. And we thought, hey, let's run it like spring ball. Let's run it like a college practice. We'll do it on Fridays and Saturdays so it's not interfering with a ton of other sports. And it's on the weekend so these kids can get, 8-10 practices in the spring. And we started it, and the format has stayed the same since, but we do 8 practices, 4 weekends in a row in the spring on Friday nights and Saturday mornings for 8 practices. And I was scared to death. I was like, please don't make me have to pay money out of my pocket for this, right? And we broke even, and I think, you can't quote me on this. Well, it's on camera, but I think I made $500 and I was ecstatic. I think nice. I was like, this is the coolest thing that I've ever done. Like, I helped kids for like 4 weekends in a row. They improved their skills and I made money. Like, I think it equated to like $60 a practice, right? And I think we had 114 kids.
Oh, wow.
Something like that. It went,
That's
it
a lot.
went fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all, if American Fork is listening, 40 kids from American Fork came that year, which was like pretty much saved us. But ever since, it's grown and it's progressed and the word has gotten out to the point that I think there was 41 Division I football players in the state of Utah last year.
It's incredible.
And 37 of them were at Mt.West Elite. And there was 100 kids last year that went on to play college football, and 86 of them were at Mt.West Elite. So to me, not only is it fun that we're coaching kids up, but like the best kids are coming. Like they're coming, they're signing up. And we've just tried, for us, I think if you were to like really button it down, we've just tried to get like 10% better every year, or 5% better every year, or 1% better every practice. It hasn't been like this, like, oh, we had this wonderful plan in year 1 and it's year 7 now and we're going to grow it into this, right? I think it's been very organic in the sense that, like, what could we do to make it a little bit better next year? What would be cool is if we had a little bit more chalk talk time for the quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. God, what would be cool is if I was going to camp, it'd be really cool if I was a quarterback that I got a football, one that I could work out with the rest of the year. So we added that in, and then speakers and real scenarios. And then instead of just doing 7-on-7 on the 40-yard line going in, we would do different things like, well, we're going to do 4 downs from the 8-yard line, 4 downs from the 16-yard line, where there's like real live game situations. And some of them were suggestions of others. Some were ideas that we came up on our own, until it's grown into this conglomerate of like what we feel is a really good camp that we offer to people. And so I was never an entrepreneur. I was I was very play it safe. I mean, I was working for Stryker, a Fortune 500 company. I was working for 1280 The Zone, which is the jazz radio station. I was very much corporate America guy. Be really, really safe with this thing, right? Be really, like, everything in me was like, just be really careful. Be really careful. I wasn't like, hey, let's start a company and I'm going to go all in and it's going to be fine. And I realized as we started doing this that I'm much more creative than I thought I was. I'm much more capable of running a business than I thought I was. And I'm much more motivated by that entrepreneurial spirit of creating something out of nothing.
Yeah.
You know? And it goes back to when we played football. It goes back to like all the lessons when we were learning little, like show up every day. Get a little bit better every day. And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, wow, this has been a really good life. This has been an interesting life. This has been a really fun experience.
Yeah.
And I think it was much more in my DNA and in my soul than I thought it was to run my own business and to run my own stuff.
Yeah, and you've done it so well. I know that my son has come down a few times and it's just been incredible to see. It is a lot like a college spring football practice. It's well organized, there's music, people are having fun, and the coaching there is exceptional. That was the first thing that I noticed, and you know, I played college football, so I know what I'm doing. I'm sitting there watching what the DB coaches are teaching my son. I'm like, yeah, these guys know what they're doing.
Thank you.
This is really well run, so congratulations on that. And then it's turned into a camp that's continued to grow, and you do that with it every single year, so that's just awesome. So really what I wanted to talk the most about with you is what you're doing now, which is mental performance coaching or sports psychology, which sounds like bleeds into several different things. It's not just sports performance. It can be performance in the workplace, in business, in sales, in training, whatever it is. All of that bleeds over. So talk a little bit first how you got into that, and then talk a little bit about some of the lessons that you've learned from that.
So 5 years ago, I actually just did a podcast about this story today, but 5 years ago I came home from work and my wife says to me, she goes, "You're not happy." I go, "What are you talking about? I'm not happy. I'm working for Stryker. Like things are going really good. I'm making good money. Like I'm making good money for our family. We're making inroads." And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "You're not happy." I'm like, what do you, I don't, where are you getting this from? I didn't have a bad day or anything. And she's like, "Well, let me ask you this question. Do you want to work for Stryker in 5 years?" I'm like, "Oh, no. I don't want to work for Stryker in 5 years. This is a heavy job. Like, this is hard work. This is not for the faint of heart." And she's
Your wife's very bright. She knows how to ask the right questions.
Right? And then she goes, "See?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "What are you going to do? Are you, like, the rest of your life, are you going to jump around from sales job to sales job that you're not happy with? And that's what we're going to do? Like, is that really how you want your life to be? Just because you make good money?" And I was like, "Well, what are you saying?" She goes, "Well, what is it that you really want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been talking about sports psychology for like since I got out of college." She's like, "You've never even said that to me." And I'm like, "I know, I talk about it. I just didn't want you to think that I was like some weirdo that was trying to chase dreams. That's kind of passed me by." And she's like, "No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't." She goes, "I'll tell you what." She goes, I like my career right now. I've got time. She goes, "Go find out the best schools. Go take the tests that you need to take. And if you get into school, I want you to quit work and I'll take care of things for a little while. And I want you to go back to school and I want you to chase it because I know you'll be happy."
So at this time, how old are you?
I'm 39 years old.
Oh, wow.
This is 5 years ago. I'm 44, right?
Yeah.
So I think the thing that I was most scared of was the GRE. I'd done really, really well in school, even in math, but on like tests, I'd get nervous about math. And it just always made me feel weird. She's like, "Well, go talk to so-and-so in our neighborhood. He'll help you out with math. He's a good dude." So I went and talked to Ken Rasband. Like 12 Monday nights in a row, he worked with me on math. I went and took the test, totally got the score within the range that I wanted, applied to 3 different schools that I really wanted to get into. I got into all 3. University of Utah was right here in my backyard. It made it real simple, real easy. It also turns out that they're like the number 2 program in the United States,
wow.
you know? And so I went back to school. So here I am. I'm a 40-year-old like graduate student with a bunch of hotshot 23, 24-year-olds, right, that are brilliant. And some of them have become really, really good friends of mine. And I'm trying to navigate this graduate school. And the things that I've learned and the path and the ability to look at my kids one day and say, hey, you can do hard things, right? To be able to look at my kids and say, it's never too late to be what you ought to have been, right? Like, I wouldn't give back these last 5 years for anything. Like, I chased a dream late in life, and it's going the right direction. So now, you fast forward 5 years, I'm graduated, I'm working with pro athletes, college athletes, high school athletes, corporations. You know, there's a pro rodeo guy that I'm working with. There's a pro basketball player that I'm working with. And I get a chance every day to help them to feel motivated, to help them to feel confident, to help them to feel secure about their path. And it's just so much better than worrying about whether I was selling a hospital bed for Stryker. It's just, for me, it's the right thing. I'm not saying that, you know, if you're a medical device salesperson, that's not a good thing. For me, that was really, really tough, and I took my lumps, and it was hard. I wish I'd had some of the tools that I learned in school while I was doing that. Yeah. It's not necessarily the path that I want to go. And so, God, I've started a podcast. I'm meeting with people like you and exchanging ideas and thinking about different ways to look at things. And I feel so much more stimulated and so much better at night falling asleep thinking about, how can I help this basketball player that's shooting 27% from the three-point line? How can I help this person who actually is going through a divorce right now, and it's hard for him to stay motivated and focused on his sport, right? How can I help him to get to where he wants to be? This is a really painful time for him, right? And just really learning how to connect with people heart to heart, giving them a couple of tools along the way, and helping them to get back up and move forward. Because, I mean, to me, I think that's what my parents showed me. I think I look back at my parents, they were hard workers. They allowed me to fail a lot. Yeah. And they weren't, my dad wasn't the guy that was going to go talk to the coach. He was like, okay, so what do you think you should do from here? Right? And if I was crying in the car because something bad happened, he was like, I understand that you're hurting. I understand that. How can I help you? He didn't say, I'm going to solve this for you. Yeah. He didn't snowplow the road for me so that I could start on every team that I played on. He didn't helicopter in every time, you know, something went wrong. He was my partner. He was my friend. My mom
sounds like an incredible father.
Yeah, I did. I had a great father, and I still have a great father. I have a great mother who, she was like, I don't care what those guys say. You're the best. You can do this. You've always done this. She does it now as I'm going out and I'm starting my own business as a sports psychology consultant and a mental performance coach, right? She's like, you got this. I never worry about you. And I'm like, oh, my mom. Like, how cool is that? Yeah. You know? And I feel grateful that I've had people like that. But we all have people like that, whether it's our parents, whether it's a coach, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a pastor, a bishop, that have affected our lives and helped us to see the mirror of ourselves in a way that can be constructive. So, you know, I don't bring up those stories with my parents or like all these great things to like go, oh, I'm so great. I've been very fortunate to have a great team around me, but I think we all do if we look for them. Yeah. You know, and there's a quote from, I think it's Mr. Rogers. I looked it up. It was from somebody's mom when I was growing up, but she's like, when you come up to an accident or when you come to something difficult, look for the helpers in your life. Look for the helpers to show up, and it will make you so you don't feel bad about that accident or about what's going on. And I think that if we look and we focus a little bit more on the helpers in our lives, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. There's so many people that want to help. Yeah. There's so many people that want to help you get to where you want to go, and not in a personal way. It's not like they want to ride your coattails. It's just like, hey, how can I help you? Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this. Oh yeah, I have this connection. I have that connection. Let me get you at lunch with this guy. Right? Yeah. You and I have reconnected. You know, it might be through Facebook. I can't even remember how we reconnected, but it's fun to think about like all these different ways that people help. Yeah. And people help you along your journey. And if you look for the helpers, they're all over the place. They're everywhere. Yeah. They're everywhere. And I'm grateful for those people. And I want to be one of those people. Well, that's why I like my job. Yeah. I like what I do because I feel like I get to be a helper. Yeah.
Well, and to share, like I said, you have been. Even when I was a freshman at Utah State, you know, I'm just a little 18-year-old kid and trying to figure things out. And I looked at you, and I looked at some of the other guys like Joe Salasabal. We brought his name up, and Idaho. I can't remember his name now.
Carl Kuhlberg.
Carl Kuhlberg. You guys had such a cool little night, or good group, and you let me tag along.
You were tagging along.
No, you did.
We knew you were the good-looking guy in the group. We needed you.
No, I love it. But you did help me back when I was a freshman, and just in feeling like I belonged to something, because I didn't have a lot of friends in Logan. I was from down in Davis County, didn't know people up there, so it was good to have friends like you. That means a lot. So talk a little bit about now performance. Now that you've been educated in, and you're practicing it, and you're teaching it. How much of a performance really is mental? Whether it's sports, whether it's business, how much of it is? I've heard different statistics, but what do you?
Well, I think it's tricky. I think that if you were to talk to an athlete, they would say, "Oh yeah, my sport's 50% physical, 50% mental, or 40-60," or they'll tell you all kinds of stuff, and lots of emphasis is placed on the mental side of sports. You're not going to believe the statistic that I think is true. I think it's 95% physical, and I think it's 5% mental. Here's the trick. Okay. Here's the caveat. That 5% is the thing that guides the 95%. It's the first 5%, if you will. And so...
the most important 5%.
I don't know if it's the most important, because physically you have to be, you have to have some talent, right? So I don't know if I want to say it's the most important, but it's the guiding element that helps you to perform at your highest level. I'll butcher the quote, but Einstein's quote is like, if you go around, judging a fish for not being very smart because he can't climb a tree, like that's not his genius. His genius is in the water, right? And so the idea is once you found something that you love, that you're competent at, that you've chosen to be in or part of, like it's your choice to be there, and once you get a good team around you, I think the sky's the limit with your mental capacity to like make that physically work, or make that job work, or to make whatever it is that you're doing work. So when I meet with athletes, when I meet with CEOs, when I meet with entrepreneurs, I'm like, yeah, the mental side is important, but I'm not going to ask you to spend 4 hours a week on the mental side. I'm going to ask you, can you give me 10 minutes a night? Can you give me 15 minutes a day? Can you give me 7 hours a week? Or can you give me an hour in a week? Yeah. Right? And so there's some real cool things that are going on as far as like the mental game that can really help enhance performance. They don't take a long time. And what's cool about it is if you imagine something in your mind, let's say we're talking about imagery or visualization, or if we're talking about doing some sort of exercise like that, they say all the time that neurons that fire together wire together. Well, there's literally no difference scientifically between a neuron that fires when you're doing it physically and a neuron that fires when you're imagining yourself doing it. So imagery becomes hugely important to any sort of performance, because you're firing those neurons and you're firing those pathways, and the more you fire the pathways, it's like you build a superhighway, so it drives smoother, it goes faster, and you don't even have to think about it. It's like your drive home from work, right? You don't really think about how you're driving home from work. It just happens because you've done it so many times, right? And the idea in sports or performance is when you get into autopilot, they call that the zone. Yeah. Right? They call that in flow. Right? Once you're able to do it so many times that when you get out there, all of a sudden you'll experience the zone from time to time. You'll experience when like you really nailed it. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, and there's a lot of things that have to come into place for you to do that. But the practice and the mental work and all those things, if you do them over and over and over again, and you do them in a deliberate way, meaning you practice it in the correct way, you're going to be able to win without having your A game, which I think is more important than thinking that you can only win when you're in the zone or in the flow. If I give 100% of my 85% today, I can win, right? I'm hurt. I've got shin splints. my shoulder's killing me. I mean, you know what it's like as a safety to play in pain.
Yep.
But if I give 100% of this 72% that I'm at today, I can still win and still be successful. I don't have to be 100%. I don't have to be in the zone to be a great football player. I don't have to be in the zone to be a great salesperson. I don't have to be in the zone to be a great CEO or entrepreneur or whatever. I just have to give 100% of what I've got today. Right? And that's where consistency is built. That's where deliberate practice is built. And that's where great performances take place, is that ability to consistently over time do the work.
Yeah, and what the word that's coming to me is it builds confidence, right?
Oh,
because if you do something mentally first, or you do it over and over again and you repeat it, you're going to build a confidence to yourself that, hey, I can go do this, like you said, if I'm giving 100% even when I'm not at my best, which is I think there's just so many people out there that they have a hard time with confidence.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, I heard you talking about this at one time, that, you know, when we speak to ourselves, or the thoughts that are going through our mind, 3 out of 4 things are negative.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me, you know.
Isn't that scary? That's from the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. 3 out of 4 times we're saying negative things to ourselves. If I can just get that to 1 out of every 2, you know, you're going to perform at a much higher level.
Right.
If I can get it to 1 out of 4, sky's the limit.
And do you see that even with professional athletes?
I think that if you were to ask me a trick question and you were to ask me, like, what's the thing that you'd be surprised that I work with athletes the most about, it's confidence, right?
Even when you're a pro.
I work with a guy right now who is the #1 scorer ever in the history of his school. He plays professional basketball. And right now, he's very, very not confident about his 3-point shooting, right? So I work with Olympic level athletes, pro athletes. I work with all these people, and I think the thing that comes back and is most surprising to people is the lack of confidence in an elite athlete. And the reason why is because confidence changes from day to day, from hour to hour, to week on what it is that you need to be confident about, right? Mm-hmm. It's this moving target that you got to stay kind of, it's almost like riding a bull in some ways. It's like you got to stay in balance and you got to stay on top of it. You got to fight to keep that confidence, you know, fight to stay on top of that thing. Because when you get bucked off, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to get back on. And so that's the thing that I work with the most that's interesting. You know, they talk about the 5 cardinal skills of mental toughness. First being control, which is kind of that thing that I'm talking about with you, where that 5% of the mental game is the most important part to your. So control is super important. Focus and concentration being number 2, right? Self-talk, imagery, pre-performance routines. Like those are kind of the 5 pillars, if you will, of like mental toughness. And it's interesting because I talk to people about this all the time. They're like, well, where's confidence? Well, all 5 of those pillars are designed to make you more confident. Control, learning to control the controllables, knowing what you can control and what you can't control so that you can focus on the things that are most important.
Yeah.
Focus and relaxation. Focus on the things that you need to focus on, right? If I were to do a test with you right now and I said, hey, for the next 10 seconds, think about everything that's blue in this room, and you looked around the room and you're looking for blue and you're looking for blue and you're looking for blue, and then I say, hey, so tell me everything that's brown in this room. All of a sudden you're scrambling, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, right? Well, we are what we focus on.
Yeah.
Right? If you're focused on the right things, you can be successful. But if you're focused on negative things or negative self-talk or negative things, you're really setting yourself up for failure. Then you go to self-talk, which is, kind of combined with that focus that I just talked about. Then you go to imagery. The most important part about imagery is involving all of your senses, right? People think imagery is just like imagining myself doing something well, but no, include your sight, include your what you smell, what you taste, what you hear, what you feel inside of your body. What are the nerves that you're feeling? How's it feeling? And replicate that thing as closely to the performance as you can, and your mind eats it up. Your mind loves it, and your mind will help you to replicate that experience when you involve all of the senses instead of just visualization.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and in fact, you and I had a talk the other day, and what this reminds me of a little bit is that we're so results driven in our society that everybody's focused on, okay, like let's take for instance basketball. How many points did I score tonight? Right? It's a tangible result that people will focus on so often.
And we do it in business.
And we do it in business, in sales, and how many sales did I get? Did I meet my quota? All of those things. And what really stuck out to what you just talked about is that if you're consistent in, are you doing the right things and are you controlling the controllables, like you just talked about, like for instance, was the shot that I took, was it a good shot whether it went in or I missed? Right. Was it a good shot? And I should reward myself because it was a good shot no matter what.
Yeah.
Same thing in sales and in business. Was the call that I made when I picked up the phone, did I give it my full effort? Did I first pick up the phone and then did I give it my full effort? Right. Whether I got the sell or not, at least, and reward yourself for that.
To me, if you're in sales, right, and let's just say that 20 sales calls in a day is a great day for a salesperson, and it's what your boss wants and it's what you want, and you know that if you make those many calls, you're going to be successful, right? Well, then you need to let go of the outcome. If you go 0 for 20 for the next 3 days, you should be excited about the 4th day because you know a sale's coming, right? You know it's coming because you've been putting in the work, you've been putting in the things that you need to do. But you need to learn how to reward yourself during those 3 days that are a little bit hard because you haven't had any sales. Because the 4th day, you could be 15 out of 20. And you could be setting your hair on fire and setting your company on fire, just going, "Wow, I'm on fire. I'm in the zone," right?
Yeah.
But you need to reward yourself on that day that you were 0 for 20 as much as you do for 15 for 20 because you were getting those 20 sales calls in and they were quality sales calls, right? Yeah. Now, anybody can throw 20. You could say that you called 20 times and you hung it up before they even answered the phone, right? But if they're 20 legitimate sales calls, like, okay, he's not interested, cross that off my list, here's my data, you know what I mean? I'm going to, and I'm really working through those 20 calls. You should reward yourself every time. And just as much, if not more, than that day where you're 15 out of 20 and you made more money for your company in one day than any salesperson ever has, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that are important to us to keep us motivated day after day after day. And it can be as simple as like, you know what? I made 20 calls. I didn't make one sale, but that's grounds for Dairy Queen. You know what I mean? Like,
I love it.
I'm going to go get that Oreo shake because that was a good day today. I didn't get it today, but it's coming, and they just little things. Or if you're trying to be healthy, like I'm trying to be, maybe it's an article of clothing, maybe it's like, you know what? I'm getting a cool t-shirt today. I'm getting a cool workout shirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or I'm going to do this. Something small, something that can keep you motivated within the parameters of what you're working for, right?
Okay, well, last question that I have for you, and I appreciate this time that we've had, is tell me about the importance of mentors and who are some mentors that you've had in your life that have helped you, and then just the importance of having a good mentor or a coach.
Well, I think mentorship is everything. Like, I think that there's 2 parts to the mentor. I think that number one, you need to have good mentors. And if you don't have one, I think you need to call somebody on the phone that you look up to and that you respect and just ask them, will you be my mentor? I need a mentor. I need someone to help guide me. I need someone to help me navigate through this wilderness that I'm in, right? I think that's an important phone call for everyone. And I think that having a good mentor can make all the difference. I think the second part to mentorship is that you need to be a mentor. And you may not think that you can be a mentor, you may not think that you deserve to be a mentor, but you have a certain amount of skill set, you have some sort of talent somewhere in your life that you could teach somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think when you do that, when you take on a mentorship, it changes the way that you think about life, it changes the way that you see results, it changes, more importantly, the way that you view failure. Because a mentor can look at failure and say, yeah, I've been there before, dude. Yeah. You're going to be just fine. That's not a big mistake, right? And then all of a sudden, when you're the person doing that and you turn it around and you're like, yeah, dude, that's not a big deal. Then all of a sudden you're going, oh, maybe the mistakes I'm making right now aren't nearly as colossal as I think they are, right?
Yeah.
They're not as big as I think. And then, God, I talked about my parents being great mentors, but Dr. Nicole Detling from Headstrong Consulting. She's been my teacher. She's been my mentor. She's been my boss.
From the University of Utah?
From the University of Utah. For me to be able to call her and talk to her and just say, hey, quite frankly, I'm a little bit overwhelmed by this project and I'm a little bit scared. First of all, she's like, well, first of all, you're not scared. You're going to be fine. You're going to kill this, right? How cool is that to hear from somebody that you really respect, right? And then the second thing is here's a couple of traps. Here's a couple of things, a couple of pitfalls to avoid that can help you. It makes all the difference. Even if I go and make mistakes after that, I go into that scenario feeling confident. Like, she gave me 3 pitfalls to avoid. I'm going to avoid those like the plague, right? And you go into it with just a little bit more confidence. So now I'm going into that business or with that athlete. My shoulders are up, my chest is out a little bit, my chin is up, and I got this, right? I've got this.
Yeah.
So I think that's the power of the mentor, is that ability to believe in you and just like show the mirror, like, no, this is why you should believe in you, Brian. Remember when you were doing this at Utah State? Remember when you were doing this? Remember how good you are at this? And I think, just as your friend, I think you're really good at A, B, and C. Man, that makes all the difference, right?
Yeah.
That kind of connection with somebody, that kind of a mentorship. And then to turn around and be able to give it to someone else is even better, right? Yeah. And so
it's great stuff.
You can't underestimate the value of a mentor. You can't underestimate the value of a really, really good, genuine, and authentic compliment to a teammate or a coworker. I don't think any of us can underestimate that. And I think as much as I've studied the mind in the last 5 years, and as much as I've studied like everything that's going on as far as like the ability to overcome because of mental toughness, or the ability to use your mind to overcome pain and obstacles and failure, I think the one thing that I keep coming back to lately is, as much as I think it's about our mind, it's about our hearts, right? It's about me connecting with you heart to heart. Yeah. It's about me connecting with a mentor or a do you call it a mentee? I don't know. Someone who I'm mentoring.
Yeah.
Talking with my heart to their heart and saying, I've been here before. You can do this. You can keep going.
Yeah.
I think the value of heart and the human spirit is incredible. And it still exists today in all the negativity that's going on, in all the terrible things that go on. There's all kinds of positive podcasts. There's all kinds of things like your business that are going on that are trying to build wellness and happiness and heart.
Yeah.
Right? It's all over the place. You just have to look for it.
And so needed in today's world where it's all about, social media, Instagram, and seeing all the highlights of people, but really connecting with an individual heart to heart, soul to soul. That's a great thing. Okay, I said one last question. I do have one more.
Okay.
Because it's just tell me what makes you the most happy.
Ooh. I think, well, 2 things came to mind real quickly. I think, one, the key to happiness in this life is improvement. And if you don't believe me, go teach a 3-year-old how to build some Legos and watch them light up. Teach them a new skill. Go teach your 5-year-old how to read. Help her to figure out how to spell, and they just light up. And I think that in our lives, when we get in a rut, when we get down, when we're not feeling happy, if we could pick something to improve on, it could be, I want to try a triathlon this year, or I want to lose some weight, or I want to just eat better. I don't care about my weight. I just want to eat better, right? Or whatever it is that you're trying to do. When you improve, you feel happy.
Yeah.
You feel happy. And sometimes you have to pick things that maybe you're not comfortable with so that you can be happy. And then, the second thing that came to mind is that most people that I work with that are the happiest are people that have picked their values and their principles, and they live within the framework of those values and principles. So that doesn't mean, I'm not trying to get religious on anybody. It could be religion, but it could be that you've picked up and you've accumulated certain values and principles for your life. And when you live inside of those principles, you're generally happy. It's when you start to get outside of those values and principles that life becomes a little bit hectic and anxious and worrisome for people. And so a lot of times I'm just like, hey, we got a lot of stuff going on in the weeds here. Let's just come back into the house for a minute. Let's get warm. Let's get you some water. Let's get you a blanket. And let's start living back within the principles that you find and think are true for you. And I think those two things are the things that make me the most happy, is when I'm living within that framework and when I'm improving.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Riley, well, I appreciate this time, and I really thank you for the impact that you've had on my life. I mean, it was 20 years ago that we first met each other. Can you believe that? Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
But I still remember the impact that you had on me even back then, and then just following you and what you've been able to do and the success you've been able to create has been amazing. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and thank you for the value that you brought.
So good. Where can I catch this podcast, or where do I catch this?
So we have right now, we have a YouTube channel that we've been putting all that on. It's Cambio Training.
Cambio Training.
Yep, that they go to, and they'll be able to catch it and subscribe to it. And then, of course, I'm going to be sending you the audio and all the stuff when it's all done, so you have it all.
All right, cool.
But thank you.